Hi guys, welcome to a new video. In this video, we'll be making this Ankara pencil long skirt with a pleated slit at the back. If this is your vibe, keep watching. Please don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe and turn on notifications so you'll be notified whenever I make a new post. Thank you. For this time, you need about 2 to 3 yards of fabric depending on your size. Now, the first thing you're going to do is to cut out a piece of Ankara for this skirt, and to do this you are going to take the widest part of your measurement, which is usually your hip for the lower part, and then you're going to add inches. This is for the front. You're going to add some inches as allowance, maybe 2 or 3, and then you're going to cut out. The next thing you're going to do is to create your starting line, which is also going to serve as your waistline. And to get my starting line, I'm taking the full length of this skirt. I didn't want to start from the upper part of the Ankara because it had a logo that I was trying to hide. So you are going to draw a line. That is my waistline. After getting my waistline, the next step is to get my hip line. And to do that, I'm going to take out 1.5 inch because this skirt is going to have a band of 1.5 inches. After taking the 1.5, I'll go ahead to mark the point, which is 10.5 from my waist to hip measurement. I'll mark the point and go on to mark my waist to knee measurement, which is 21 inches. I also go on to mark the full length of this skirt, which is 41 inches. After marking the full length, I added another 2 inch for my allowance. I'll get my ruler to extend the line so it will be easy for me to mark my round body measurements. After extending my lines, I'll go ahead to label. That's my waistline. This is my hip line. This is my knee line. And that's the full length. The last line is my allowance. Now for your waistline, you're going to take your round waist measurement. You're going to add 1 inch for that. And then you're going to add your allowance. I use 1.5 inches for my allowance. You can go ahead and use 2 inches for your allowance. Now for your hip line, you're going to take your hip circumference divided by 4, and then you're going to add your allowance. Now to get my knee measurement, since this is a pencil skirt, I'm going to be taking away 2 inches from my hip measurement. Whatever you have as your hip measurement, take away 2 inches. Whatever I have on my knee line, that's the same thing I'll be marking at the bottom of the skirt. The next step is to connect all my points together. So getting a curved row, I'm going to be connecting from my hip to my waist, just like you see me do. From my hip also to my knee line, just like I'm doing. And then I'll be getting a straight ruler to connect from my skirt length to my knee line, just like so. Then you go ahead and cut on all the lines I have made, just like I'm doing. Now the next step is to cut out your fabric for the back piece. Now remember, the back piece is going to have a pleated vent and it's easier to cut it at once. So to achieve this, you're going to make sure the back piece is 10 inches wider than the front on fold. So this means that when you place your front piece on your back piece, there's going to be extra 10 inches on the zip allowance area. Now here I was just trying to measure to be sure it is up to 10 inches, and it was up to 10 inches. Then I went ahead to extend all my lines. That's my allowance line, my waistline, and also my hip line. So after extending all my lines, I'm just marking the points where the front stops. Now on the waistline, before I draw my zipper allowance, I'm going to add 1/2 inch. This 1/2 inch I added is what is going to be the bum allowance, just to enable the skirt sit perfectly. After doing that, I'll go ahead and mark my zip allowance, which is 2 inches. I'm marking it on the waistline, and now I'm also marking it on the hip line after the 1/2 inches that I've added for the bum allowance. I'll also go ahead and mark it on the knee line, just like I'm doing. After marking the points, I'll go ahead to connect it. I'm just using my free hand. You can use a ruler or a curved ruler. Now I'm just showing you the 1/2 inch that I added for the bum allowance, the effect that it is going to have. That's what it looks like. That area is a little bit curvier than the rest of the skirt. Now you're going to follow how I'm cutting this skirt. You're going to cut the zipper allowance from the waistline to the knee line, just like I'm doing, and then you're going to leave out that 10 inches. Please watch what I'm doing. After cutting it out, I've removed the front and then I've notched my zipper allowance. Because this skirt is fully lined, the next step is to go ahead and trace out the exact same thing you have on the Ankara on the lining piece. The difference is that you're not adding the length allowance to the lining. So the 2 inches I added, you will not be adding it. Just add ½ inch to join the lining to the Ankara. Now I'm going to go ahead and repeat the same process for the back piece. You're just going to place it on a lining piece and trace it out. Also remember, you'll not be adding the 2 inches that I added on the Ankara allowance. So instead on the line, you're just going to be adding ½ inch, and that's what you'll be using to join the Ankara to the lining. The next step is to join the Ankara with the lining, and to do this, you're going to be placing the lining on the right side of the Ankara fabric, and then you're going to go to your machine and stitch it. You're going to stitch it down. You're going to follow all through. The only part of this skirt that will be open is just the part that is the waist. So just follow the direction of my hands and go and stitch it all around. This is the only place that will be open, the waist area. That's the only area that will be open. You go ahead and do this for the front piece. Close up all the areas except the waist area. Please remember to place the lining on the right side of the Ankara. After going ahead to sew it, I've just notched it to make the turning really easy for me. I'll go ahead and turn this over to the right side. And this is what it looks like. I've also done the same for the back piece. This is what it looks like after stitching it through. So I'm just going to be giving it some notches to make it really easy and neat when I turn it over to the right side. So I like to notch all of these areas. Then I also go ahead and turn it to the right side using the waist area. Please just watch what I'm doing. After turning over to the right side, the next step is to give it a very good press so it will lay very flat and neat. The next step is your dart, and to get your dart, you're going to be using your nipple to nipple measurement. In this case, I'm using 4.5 inches. You're going to place your skirt on fold, and then you're going to mark the point of 4.5 inches. I like to give mine a good notch so that it will be exactly equal for the both sides. After marking the point, I like to come down by 5 inches, mark the point, and then I'll go ahead to the waistline and take ½ inches on both sides. Get a ruler and connect it to the line I've made, just like so. Repeat the process for the other side of the skirt, and I'm also going to do the same for the back piece. Before you start to measure your 4.5 inches dart allowance for your back piece, please don't forget to put your zipper measurements into consideration, the allowance for your zipper, so that it will not be smaller by the time you are done joining your zipper. After marking my point, I'll go to my machine and stitch my dart intake. So the next step is to get my zipper allowance. I gave it a notch from the waistline, so I'm using the same measurement to just go down all through to the end of the skirt. I like to measure the points carefully and mark them before I connect because I want it to be accurate. Now after getting to my knee line, I like to measure out the 10 inches allowance I added for the pleated slit. And the reason why I'm marking this point is to know where my zipper allowance will continue from. After marking the point, I connect with a straight ruler, just like you see me doing, like so. Now that's my allowance for the pleated slit. I'm going to go ahead and continue with my measurement for my zipper allowance. If you look at this carefully, you see that it is not straight at the bum area because of the extra ½ inch that I added at the bum area. The next thing to do is to go to my machine and sew this, but I like to use a loose stitch. That's number 5 stitch up until my knee area because I know I'm going to be losing it eventually. And also from my waistline to where my zipper allowance is supposed to be, I like to use a loose stitch. And the areas where I will not be losing later, I use my tight stitch. Now, after closing my zipper allowance area, I'll be left with my pleated stitch area, which I'm going to be dividing in 3. So for the first one, I'm going to be using 3.25. I'm also going to be using 3.25. For the last slit, I'm going to be using 3.5. I've gone to the end of the skirt to measure the exact same thing to give me a straight line by the time I rule. Now I'll get my ruler to get a straight line from the top to the bottom of my slit area, just like you see me doing. Now after getting these lines, you take it to your machine and you stitch it. I advise you to use a loose stitch because you'll be losing it out later. I've done that and I'm just showing you how it looks. Now the next thing to do is to make sure that this second stitch is touching the first stitch. So I'm going to be using your iron to share this into two, just like I'm doing, to make sure the stitches are touching each other. So you take one side to the left and another side to the right. Please just watch what I'm doing. You open it up, give it a good press. You turn it over to the other side and also give it a good press. So this is what you are going to have by the time you are done. This is what is going to give you the pleats. Make sure you iron this thoroughly. After doing this, you repeat this process for the second time. You're going to open it up. Make sure the stitches are touching each other. So half of the 3 point something will go to the left, the other half will go to the right. But you're going to be using your iron for this and you're going to be ironing thoroughly. Advise that you get a steam iron for this. Now for the last one, which is about 3.5 inches, you're going to be doing the exact same thing. You're just going to open it up, take one part to the left and one part to the right. Just watch what I'm doing, please, in case you don't understand what I'm saying. Watch what I'm doing. Give it a very good press. After ironing properly, I'm going to open the skirt up and this is what it should be looking like. You're going to have 3 pleats. I go in with my iron to ensure it is very smooth. Guys, this needs a lot of ironing. Now you're going to take it to your sewing machine and stitch on this point. And you're doing this to secure all of the pleats. Now after doing that, you can go ahead to loose the stitches to review your pleats. But I like to be done with the skirt first. So I'll go ahead and pin the front of the skirt to the back, right side facing each other, just like you see me doing. Now I'll go ahead and put in my skirt measurements. I'll take my width circumference divided by 4 and I'll put it on both sides of the skirt. On my hip line, I'll take my hip circumference divided by 4 and then I'll mark it on both sides of the skirt. I'll do the same thing for my knee line and for the full length of this skirt. Now after getting all my points, the next step is to get my rulers and connect the points. I'm going to be using a straight rule for the lower part and then I'm going to be using my hip curve just to get the curve to curve nicely around the hip area. So just watch what I'm doing and connect the lines. The next step is to go to my machine and stitch on the lines. Now for my band, I've gone ahead to cut out a fabric that is at least 5 inches wide and way longer than my waist circumference. Maybe add 6 to 7 inches so you'll be able to get some allowance to play around with. Now I've gone ahead to iron this by 1/2 inch and then I'm making sure that this is very flat. Now you further fold it from the area you have folded by 1/2 inch. And here I'm just trying to measure out 1.5 inch because I want this to be exactly 1.5 inch. So I'm using my tape to get 1.5 inch and then I'm going ahead to iron them slowly as I'm going. This is a little tedious. You can go ahead to just mark yours with a chalk. I don't know what I was thinking doing it like this, but this is exactly how I achieved it. And it was 1.5 inch all through. After I was done, I gave it a very good press so it can lay really flat. I folded this into 2 and then I cut out the excesses, making sure I left out 1/2 inch. Now to join this band to the skirt, I notched the center and I'm going to be placing it also on the center of this skirt. Now, there are different ways of attaching band, but this is how I like to do mine. I place the center of the band to the center of the skirt, and I noticed that I'm doing this on the wrong side. I'm placing this on the wrong side, so I used a pin to pin it round the waist of this skirt. And I'll sew this round by 1/2 inch. Now, after sewing round by 1/2 inch, I'm going to use the other part to cover it up, just like you see me doing. You can go ahead to pin this down if it will be tedious for you. So you're just going to go edge of the skirt. After giving this a good press, this is what it looks like. I've also gone ahead to stitch my zipper, and this is what it looks like. Now I'm going to go ahead and open up the stitch for my pleated slit. I'm just showing you the lines that are going to be losing, so you can get a seam ripper. I didn't have one available, so I used my razor. I used loose stitch, so it was really easy for me to take out. So guys, please watch what I'm doing. You lose the stitch until you get to the point where you stitched it at the knee line. So after losing the first stitch, I went ahead with the second one, and this is me just losing it gently until I was done. And this is what it looks like. So I've loosed 2 out of the 3 stitch. Now I'm going ahead with the last one and the final one. So this is me just taking it out. A seam ripper will be way easier, but yeah. So after I was done losing all the stitches, this is how it came out. I think it came out really nice. I'm just trying to open it up and lose out the thread so it will be neat. This is exactly what you have, guys, by the time you are done with this process. I gave it a good final press to ensure it stays in place, and that's all for this skirt. Please don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you'll be notified whenever I make a new post. Thank you, and see you in the next video.